I met him online, like most people meet these days. It started with a comment on a video, something silly, maybe about coffee or dogs. I can't even remember now, but he replied. Then I replied, and within days, we were messaging back and forth like we had known each other for years. His name was Ethan, or at least that's what he said. He was funny, warm, quick-witted in the way that made you feel like you were the only person in the room, even if that room was a digital screen. He wasn't overly handsome, but charming. He had that easy way of making you open up without realizing how much you were giving away. And I gave away everything. We started video chatting late at night. I'd make tea. He'd pretend to drink wine. Sometimes I'd catch a glimpse of his apartment, bookshelves, soft lighting, a guitar resting in the background. Everything about him screamed safe and creative and harmless, and after a string of relationships that had made me feel small, invisible, replaceable, Ethan felt like a refuge. He told me he was single, said he hadn't dated seriously in over a year. He worked in graphic design, freelanced from home, loved dogs, hated olives, quoted obscure movies, and asked questions no one ever asked me about my dreams, my fears, what I would do if I weren't afraid. I fell hard. We met in person after 2 months. He drove up to see me, brought me sunflowers. The happiest flower, he said. He smelled like cinnamon and pine. We spent the weekend in my apartment talking, laughing, wrapped up in sheets and stories, and the kind of soft intimacy I thought only existed in books. After he left, I cried. Not because I was sad, but because I felt full, full of hope, full of the idea that maybe, just maybe, something real had finally found me. We kept seeing each other. Every 2 weeks, he'd come for the weekend. Sometimes he'd stay longer. He said he didn't like being in the city too long. It drained him. He liked how quiet my town was, said it made him feel human again. I started thinking long term, not because he asked me to, but because everything felt so natural, so easy. We'd talk about houses with porches and rescue dogs and names for future kids that we both pretended we weren't serious about. And then I missed my period. At first, I didn't panic. It happens sometimes. Stress, changes in diet, whatever. But the second week came, and I knew. Deep down, I knew. I took the test alone, sat on the edge of my bathtub while my heart punched at my ribs. Positive. I stared at the little pink lines like they were written in another language. I was 28. I had a job, a life, a savings account. But none of that made me feel ready. Not for this. I called him that night, told him. He was quiet. Then he laughed, a nervous, breathless kind of laugh. Wow, he said. Okay, we can talk about this. We'll figure it out. And I believed him. He came that weekend, held my stomach like there was already something there, said things like, "You'll be a great mom," and "We'll make it work." I believed him again. Things started to change after that. Subtle at first. He became harder to reach during the week, said work was piling up. He canceled a visit, then another. I started getting one-word replies. Calls went to voicemail. I waited. I told myself not to be needy, that he was overwhelmed, that pregnancy was big and scary, and maybe he just needed space. Then one night, I decided to surprise him. He'd never invited me to his place, but I had his address from a package he once sent me. A hoodie. I told myself it would be romantic, like in the movies. I'd show up, we'd talk, hug, cry, plan. I drove 2 hours. The sky was overcast and heavy. I remember thinking it felt like something was waiting to fall. His neighborhood was nice, quiet, rows of trees and trimmed hedges. I found his apartment. I walked up the steps, heart racing, hands clammy. I knocked. A woman answered. She was beautiful, polished. Her eyes went straight to my belly. "Yes," she said. I stammered. I'm looking for Ethan." Her face didn't change, but her eyes did. "Ethan's not home," she said. "I'm his wife. Can I help you?" Everything in me went cold. Wife, not girlfriend, not ex, not roommate. Wife. I couldn't speak. I think I whispered sorry before turning and stumbling down the stairs. I drove back without remembering the road. My phone buzzed the whole way. Texts from Ethan. I didn't open them. I couldn't. When I got home, I opened the last one. It said, "I'm sorry. Please let me explain." But what was there to explain? He was married. All this time, the nights, the weekends, the stories, the love, the lies. I didn't cry that night. I sat in my living room, one hand on my stomach, the other on my phone. And I decided he lied. He took everything from me. Now I would take everything from him. After that night, I didn't speak to anyone for 3 days. I didn't eat. I barely slept. I sat in silence with my hands resting on my stomach and the weight of betrayal pressing into every part of me. I didn't cry, not at first. The tears came later, slow and burning, as if even my body was ashamed to let them fall. I replayed every conversation in my head, every look, every touch, every "I love you" he whispered into my hair when he thought I was asleep. I remembered the time he said, "You're safe with me," and how I smiled because I believed it. I remembered the way he looked at me like I was something he couldn't believe he'd found, and I remembered that door, the one she opened, the one where his real life stood behind it, perfectly intact, a life where I didn't exist. I was the secret, the side story, the fool, and I was pregnant. I spent that week researching lawyers, not for custody, not yet. I wasn't even sure I wanted him anywhere near this child, but I needed to know what rights I had. I read about paternity tests, state laws, spousal fraud. I made notes. I made copies. I saved everything. But even then, I knew this wasn't about legal justice. I wanted ruin. I wanted every lie he told me to follow him into every room he entered for the rest of his life. I wanted his wife to know, his friends, his clients, the dog walker, the barista who spelled his name wrong on purpose. I wanted to burn his perfect image down to ash. But first, I needed to understand who he really was. I started small, social media. He had deleted or hidden most of it, but you'd be surprised what you can find with a burner account and 5 hours of insomnia. I found his wife's page, pictures of brunches, hikes, a dog named Cooper. There were no signs of a crumbling marriage. She smiled in every photo. So did he. Sometimes they matched outfits. My stomach churned every time I saw his arm around her. Next came LinkedIn. I found his company, his co-workers, even a press release about a promotion he had recently received. Creative director. What a joke. I printed it out and wrote "liar" across it in red marker, then threw it in the trash. But it wasn't enough. I needed more. I needed to get close. I created a new online persona, a woman named Claire. She was curious, friendly, just a bit flirtatious. Enough to draw attention, not enough to raise alarm. She joined the same online design forums Ethan used. She posted thoughtful comments. She messaged him about a project, and he replied, just like he had with me. Same rhythm, same charm, same game. I knew his patterns now. I studied them like a scientist. I watched how he escalated conversations, when he joked, when he complimented, when he backed off, and when he pushed forward. It was all a formula, a disgusting, manipulative formula. Claire let him flirt. She mirrored his energy. She asked subtle questions. And Ethan? Oh, Ethan gave her everything. Within a week, I had screenshots, messages, voicemails, things no married man should be saying, things that painted him exactly as what he was, a liar, a serial manipulator, and a man who had no idea who he was messing with. Next, I sent an anonymous message to his wife. Nothing dramatic, just a photo. One of him kissing my forehead. No caption, no sender, just the truth, sitting in her inbox like a time bomb. She didn't respond, not that I expected her to. But the next day, she blocked him on Instagram, and then she deleted their last 3 posts. I knew something had cracked. Good. It wasn't enough yet. I started sending packets to his office, his colleagues. Inside, carefully printed screenshots and a letter. Your creative director is currently involved in multiple inappropriate relationships, one of which resulted in a pregnancy. He presents himself as single. This is not the case. No name, no return address, just evidence. I didn't send them all at once. I spaced them out. First to HR, then his supervisor, then the assistant I had once seen in the background of a video call. Let it spread. Let the whispers start. Let him squirm. I imagined his face each time, the sweat forming at his collar, the way he would scan the room, wondering who knew, the way his perfect world would begin to collapse, one careful piece at a time. He texted me again around this time. Please talk to me. Then again, you don't have to do this. And finally, don't destroy me. But it was too late. He had done that to me. I went to a doctor, saw the first blurry shape of my baby, heard the heartbeat. It was fast, strong. I cried then, not because of Ethan, but because of this tiny thing inside me that hadn't lied, that hadn't betrayed me, that hadn't asked to be part of this mess, but was here anyway. And I made a decision. I would raise this child, not as a victim, not as a woman scorned, but as someone who survived, as someone who fought back, and as someone who was just getting started. Ruin isn't loud. It doesn't always come with flames and screaming. Sometimes it's quiet, a slow leak in the life someone worked so hard to seal tight. That's how I chose to dismantle Ethan, not with rage, but with strategy. It started with his reputation. He built it carefully. Ethan, the genius creative, the dependable guy, the one who always delivered for clients and brought donuts for the interns. His coworkers liked him. His clients adored him. His boss trusted him. So I made it my mission to twist that image. Just a little, just enough. I knew his biggest upcoming pitch. It was mentioned in one of his emails, the ones he thought he deleted. A new tech company was looking for branding, and Ethan had spent weeks preparing. I called them, posed as a concerned industry partner. I told them Ethan had been under investigation for harassment and manipulation. I mentioned the letters sent to his office. I told them, off the record, that they might want to reconsider. They dropped the contract. He lost a $200,000 deal before he even knew what happened. He started spiraling from there. His wife, I learned, had moved out. Took the dog, too. She hadn't filed for a divorce yet, but she'd stopped posting pictures of her ring and removed wife from her bio. I couldn't confirm it, but I suspected she knew more than she let on. Maybe she found the other women. Maybe she started seeing the patterns I had laid out for her, carefully, over time. It was almost beautiful watching it unfold. But I wasn't done. I leaked screenshots to a freelance blog that specialized in workplace scandals. Nothing illegal, just the kind of morally repugnant behavior that gets people blacklisted. They didn't name him outright, but those who knew him recognized the quotes, the timestamps, the tone. It spread through LinkedIn like wildfire. He deactivated all his accounts. His email signature disappeared. His face vanished from the company website. Then the rumors started. He was suspended, demoted, fired. No one knew for sure. But everyone noticed the silence. Still, it wasn't enough. Because he still hadn't apologized. Not really. He hadn't admitted anything. He still walked around somewhere believing that this was just some phase, some storm he could outlast. That if he kept his head down long enough, I'd disappear. So I made sure I didn't. I showed up, not in person. That would have been too easy, Too dramatic. No, I showed up in whispers, in texts, in anonymous emails to people I knew he still talked to. I became the echo in his life, a soft breath on the back of his neck that he could never quite escape. I found an old college friend of his, someone he hadn't seen in years, but still followed on social media. I messaged her as Claire, told her he'd been grooming younger women in the industry, that he was reckless, that he needed help. She believed me. She posted a thread. It got traction. His name was never used, but people knew. Ethan was becoming radioactive, and all the while I kept my own life steady. I went to prenatal classes. I picked out baby names. I worked remotely and smiled when people asked how I was doing. I didn't tell them about the quiet war I was waging. I didn't tell them that every breath I took was a calculated step toward justice. Then he broke. It happened with a voicemail. "I don't know what you want," he said. "You've made your point. I lost everything. I can't sleep. I can't work. My life is a wreck. Congratulations, you win," he cried. I listened to it 3 times, and then I deleted it, because this wasn't about winning. This was about truth, about showing a man who built his world on lies what it felt like when the foundation cracked. Still, part of me expected him to fight back, to deny, to threaten. But he didn't. He vanished. I didn't hear from him for weeks. No messages, no calls, no new accounts or burner numbers, just silence. And I thought, maybe it was over. Then I got an email. It was from his wife. Subject line, "Thank you. That's all." Just 2 words. I sat with that email for a long time, because for the first time, someone else saw what I saw, believed what I knew, felt what I felt, and suddenly I wasn't alone in the story anymore. I was part of something larger. He hurt more than just me, and now he was alone with the wreckage. I didn't need to say anything back. She knew. It didn't happen all at once. You'd think that destroying a man would have some grand finale, a slam of a gavel, a headline, an explosion. But real collapse doesn't echo. It erodes, bit by bit, until there's nothing left to stand on. Ethan didn't vanish overnight. First, it was the job, then the apartment, then his name stopped showing up in industry newsletters. Then his wife filed for divorce. Quietly, without fanfare. I saw it in a public record search, a cold little entry on a government website. It was everything I wanted, and somehow not enough. I wasn't looking for pain anymore. I'd had plenty of that. What I wanted was silence, peace, the kind of stillness that comes when the storm is behind you and you're just sitting in the ruins, knowing you survived. But healing doesn't arrive with victory. It creeps in when you're not watching. It started with a walk. It was late fall, and the leaves were brittle under my boots. My belly had grown round and heavy, and I felt my body shifting, preparing. I wasn't scared anymore. I wasn't angry. I was just tired, deeply, entirely tired. I sat on a bench in the park and watched a father run after his toddler. They were laughing. I didn't envy them, not anymore. I just watched and let the scene pass through me like light through glass. That night, I deleted the folder, the one with all the screenshots, the audio, the photos, the drafts of letters I never sent, the evidence of what he had done. I kept one thing, a printed ultrasound. Not because it had anything to do with him, but because it was mine, proof of what had grown inside me, not what he had destroyed. I didn't cry when I did it, just felt a strange sense of space, like clearing out a room you didn't realize you'd been living in. The next morning, I made tea. That was new. I hadn't made tea since before everything. I let the water boil, steep the bag, watch the steam rise. It felt normal, and normal for the first time felt like a gift. Ethan tried to contact me once more. I got the message in the 3rd trimester. A long email, full of excuses maybe. I don't know, I didn't read it. I saw his name in the inbox, felt the ghost of who I used to be rise up like a reflex. And then I clicked delete, not out of power, out of disinterest. He no longer held space in my story. The final piece of him was gone. The birth was quiet. No drama, no pain that lasted. Just breath and push and breath again, until suddenly I was holding a life, a son. He looked nothing like him. And even if he had, I don't think it would have mattered. I named him after no one. I gave him a name that sounded like strength, like beginning. The hospital let us go home 2 days later. The drive was short. The house was small, but bright. I had painted the nursery myself. There were little bears on the wall and a mobile I'd ordered late one night when sleep wouldn't come. The first time I sang to him, he blinked at me like he understood. That was the moment I realized. I wasn't just free of Ethan. I was full of something else, something permanent. Months passed. People stopped asking. The ones who had whispered about me in the beginning found new drama to follow. The ones who had supported me didn't need details. They just stayed. I went back to work. Slowly, I built a routine. I made new friends, other mothers, other survivors. We shared stories over coffee and diapers and the soft chaos of early motherhood. Ethan's name stopped floating in my head like poison. He was just a chapter, a necessary, horrible chapter, and one I had finished. One night, when my son was nearly 6 months old, I found a message in my inbox, not from Ethan, from someone else, a woman. She wrote, "I think he did the same thing to me. I found your name through the blog. I hope you don't mind me reaching out." I stared at it for a long time, and then I replied, not with fury, not with vengeance, with empathy, because I knew what it felt like to be her, to wonder if you imagined it, to need someone, anyone, to say, "I believe you." We exchanged messages. We shared timelines. She cried. I listened. And when I told her what I had done, she didn't judge. She just said, "Thank you." It wasn't justice exactly, but it was something better. Connection, truth, the end of silence. I don't talk about him now, not because it's painful, because he doesn't matter. My son matters. My peace matters. The person I became, she matters. And she's not made of revenge anymore. She's made of recovery, of love, of survival.